And now it is my absolute pleasure to get to introduce one of our graduate speakers, Tachonna Frisco. Tachonna is one of those amazing people who, despite the obstacles that life can throw at us, still finds a way to move forward, taking each step in stride and smiling through it. Even through the math, even through the pandemic. Before the pandemic, Tachonna had been a constant bright presence in the classroom, and then when March 2020 hit, Tachonna was one of our very first in-person students to try the virtual classes. Her resilience and strength are inspiring, and I'm so honored to get to introduce her tonight. Here is Tachonna Frisco.
Before I started at Seeds, I was all over the place. I had been trying to get my GED since 2008 when I had my daughter. And I had tried 5 or 6 other GED places, and I just couldn't catch the vibe. They were in one-on-one, so I stopped going. In 2014, I had found out I was pregnant with my oldest son. I went through domestic violence, and I had him at 3 months. He was 1 pound, 1 ounce, and was born at 26 weeks. In the midst of him being in the incubator, I was only able to sit there and look at him. At the point, I thought to myself, I had 2 children, and I was basically homeless. I was living with my aunt, and it was difficult. So after leaving my aunt's house, I essentially moved in the hospital and had my daughter stay with her dad. My son was in the hospital for 2 months. While all this time was going on, I was sitting there thinking I needed to do something for my children. And once we were out the hospital, I have a stable place to live. I was going back to school. So once we found a place to stay, I decided I really need to do something more. I really need more than these dead-end jobs. But I was nervous because I wasn't sure what the jobs were required. After moving once more in 2016, I started another GED program. But when I walked in, I immediately knew it wasn't for me. I tried my hardest to stay for 2 weeks, but then I left. One day I was riding down Kinsman and I saw a big sign in the window that said GED. And I was, well, let me call and set up a time to go in. I really hesitated. I realized that my children go to school every day and I couldn't give 2 hours out of my time. I was there a few months, but then I really had this thing where I was asking myself, should I go to school or should I work? So I put school on the back burner. I took a vacation in 2017, was working full time during that time, but I wanted better. But then I realized I needed to focus on school. That's when I came back to Seeds full time. I tried to bring someone with me because I feel that it's never too late to get your education. It's only 2 hours out of your time, and now you can even do it from your phone. When I came back the second time, I was still a little nervous. I tried the reading test 2 times, and then I met Kara. The reading test really discouraged me, so I didn't want to try it again. I kept telling myself I'll sit here and do work until Kara put her foot down and said, no, that you're going to take this test. So I took the test for the 3rd time, and then I passed. Once I passed the first time, I knew I had to put my fears aside and just do it. I took social studies next and then science, passing both. Then I took another vacation. This time, vacation wasn't quite as long as the other one, but I only took it because I became pregnant again and found out my son had spinal bifida, and I had to have fetal surgery. While recovering from my surgery, though, I had my son's dad bring me homework to do at the hospital while on bed rest for a whole month. My son came 2 weeks after the surgery at 27 weeks. I shocked myself at how quickly I came back to school because I had to keep in mind on other things while my son was in hospital for 6 months. My whole life was getting my kids to school and going to see my son at the hospital. I was working, but I knew I needed to go back to school. During that time, I was going through depression and anxiety. I get down on myself a lot and think that once something goes wrong, the whole world is going to end. But I'm learning not to do that to myself. Kara pushing and bugging was inspiration. Although I didn't like math, I think it's the stupidest thing in the world, especially if you're not going to use it in your life. I knew I wasn't going to be an engineer, but I really think that if I had the time to learn math like I should have in middle school and high school, I wouldn't have thought it was stupid. because some of it is actually fun when you actually get to learn things like slope. It can be fun, especially if you have the right person to teach you, which I found in my tutors like Mary Pat and Julie. I would say math is not as bad now. It was my worst enemy, but now it's just mind over matter. I took a bunch of practice tests, but they were discouraging me because they were going up and down. My thoughts was, if this is what the official test is like, I don't think I'm going to make it. But Kara kept saying, you're going to make it. Before I took the test, I didn't feel that I should celebrate my birthday, which was 10 days before I took the math test, because I had originally scheduled it, the test before my birthday, but then I had to reschedule it. When I finally went and took it for the second time, I passed. I found that I passed, and I was at the bank, and I was so excited. I couldn't focus, and I had to pull over and cry. With Kara on the phone, I had to go home, and I had to ask myself if this is really true. I had such a hard time believing I passed, but I did. I graduated twice this year. Actually, after getting my GED, I went on to VIP dental through Premier Smiles. It was an 11-week program, and now I'm a dental assistant. I plan going to be a CDA, which is a certified dental assistant, or RDA, which is a registered dental assistant. I would tell future students, don't you ever give up on your dreams, and there will always be trials and tribulations in life, but you will make it through. It's a long journey, and it's only as long as you make it. Seeds is fun.